Roll Tide. The Heisman Trophy ceremony, simply a coronation for Alabama's Bryce Young. It is official. We can now say Bryce Young wins the Heisman Trophy. It wasn't a surprise. We all expected it. Barrett, you're not surprised by this because why are you not surprised?
Well, because I voted for him in my Heisman ballot, so that definitely starts it off. But, I mean, look, we talked about it earlier before the announcement was made. His season is comparable to Joe Burrow's, and Bryce has got no help up front until last week. So, for me, that was easy. To see Bryce Young up close and personal in Game 1 look exactly like he did in Game 13 when he sliced and diced Georgia's defense, it just shows to me that he's the best offensive player and best just player in general in college football. And when we get the ballots, they always say the Heisman Trust statement, the best player, most outstanding player in college football. And right now, think about it. If Bryce Young is not on that Alabama team, if Paul Tyson is taking those snaps with that offensive line, Alabama's not in the playoff. In fact, Alabama's not going to win the SEC West. It would have been Ole Miss.
Yeah, I agree with everything you hit on, Barrett. Deserving of this award. You just look at his entire season, right? Week 1 against Miami, he kind of jumped on the scene with that performance, and then that led to his name being tied to the Heisman conversation. And the ultimate big-time Heisman moment was in the Iron Bowl, being able to come from behind and that big-time touchdown throw he was able to make in the corner of the end zone. And then when you thought that was it, he jumps on the scene in the SEC championship game for the Heisman moment. And he didn't just have one moment in that ball game. He had moments, plural, because the job he did against that defense was the final stamp of approval that he needed from the committee, including Barrett, that I am the best player in college football and I deserve the Heisman Award. And because of that, all of those moments combined in one season, he just won the Heisman. And Alabama, back-to-back players, back-to-back Heisman years. Hats off to Nick Saban. He just continues to add to his GOAT resume as a coach as well.
Yeah, B-Mac, you're absolutely right. In his first season as a starter, Bryce Young delivered a bevy of Heisman moments. And now he is the latest Alabama player to win the most prestigious individual award in college football.
Alabama has won 18 national championships and has been the premier program in college football ever since Nick Saban took over in 2007. But Bryce Young just became the first Crimson Tide quarterback to ever win the Heisman Trophy in a landslide vote. The superstar sophomore quarterback had to wait his turn as the backup for Mac Jones in the 2020 season. But when he got his first start in the season opener against Miami, he was more than ready, tossing 4 touchdowns in electric fashion. Perhaps the most impressive part of Young's season, other than the gaudy stats, was his calmness under pressure. With their playoff hopes hanging in the balance, down a touchdown late against their arch-rival Auburn, it was Young who engineered a 97-yard drive to tie the game and eventually win it in quadruple overtime. And when Bama needed a win against top-ranked Georgia in the SEC championship game, just to make the college football playoffs against a defense who many were calling one of the best units of all time, it was apparent pretty quick who the best player on the field was in a record-setting performance.
Bryce has tons of time, steps back, looks long, throws. Jamison Williams behind the defense. He's got it. Touchdown, Alabama! 55 yards. What a throw. What a catch.
The scary part for Alabama opponents is that Young is just scratching the surface of his potential. Will he join Archie Griffin next year as only the second player to take home the Heisman twice? Bet against him at your own risk.
Welcome in two-time Super Bowl champ Bryant McFadden and CBS Sports HQ college football analyst Barrett Sallee. Barrett voting for Bryce Young as he wins the Heisman Trophy. Barrett, how would you describe the season of the Alabama quarterback?
It's just magical because going into the season, I think we all expected Bryce Young to be the quarterback for the Alabama Crimson Tide. There was a reason that he was near the top of all the odds boards going into the season behind Spencer Rattler and DJ Uiagalelei. And when those guys tailed off, Bryce Young didn't. Bryce Young was a star from the moment he stepped foot on the field. He was getting no help from his offensive line from game 1 through game 12, and he still put up Joe Burrow-like stats. And then in game 13, obviously the best defense maybe in a generation, and all Bryce Young does is set the SEC championship game record for passing yards and total offense. So from game 1 through game 13, he was the most outstanding player in college football. That's who the award is supposed to go to. Now, look, I'm not one that wants this to be a quarterback award, but it is the most important position on the field. And without him, and value is a big deal to me when I'm filling out my ballot, without Bryce Young, Alabama's not a playoff team.
Yeah, for Bama, he was the most important player. He was the most valuable player. He did so much for their team. In a game where they sacked him 7 times, he never got down against Auburn. I mean, they sacked Bryce Young, who was a mobile quarterback. Think about that, a guy who can make people miss, right? He was sacked 7 times, and he never laid down. He got back up, and he fought. He fought for 4 quarters, going into overtime, coming up with a huge, huge win for them. So when you look at the overall team success that Alabama had this season, combined with his individual success, no question, this was the worst kept secret in college football because we all knew who the award was going to and who deserved it the most.
Barrett, at what point did he clinch the Heisman? At what point did he clinch it? Was it what he did in the Iron Bowl, or was it what he did in the SEC championship?
Well, I think it was with under a minute to go in regulation of the Iron Bowl when he hit Ja'Cory Brooks to force overtime, because I think at that point, nobody thought that Alabama could even come close to making that comeback, because that game was just an absolute mess up front and for Bryce Young. And like you said, 97 yards with everything on the line, not just state bragging rights, and I know all about that rivalry, and state bragging rights do matter more than anything else, but also the SEC championship and college football playoff at stake. And at the same time, we already knew at that time that C.J. Stroud had lost. So going into the SEC championship game, which was basically a victory lap for Bryce Young, I think as long as he acquitted himself okay in that game, even if they lost, if he had just a little bit of success, he'd have been fine, because his primary contender, primary threat, C.J. Stroud, wasn't playing on Championship Saturday and did not beat his arch rival. Bryce Young did. He did it in dramatic fashion, and then he sliced and diced the best defense of a generation. So I think really, with under a minute to go in the Iron Bowl, that's when everything came together for him.
Yeah, the Iron Bowl was like that full course meal, the dinner you get, and you're like, yo, I'm so satisfied. I'm so happy I decided to pick this option instead of another option, right? And then the SEC championship game was the dessert. It's almost like, well, you ate so much during dinner, I don't want any dessert. And then you see exactly what they have on the menu, like, wow, you guys got that? I'm full, but I'm going to try that. And then when you try the dessert, you're like, man, this is the best restaurant ever, or this is the best chef ever. So the Iron Bowl was the dinner, right? That was unbelievable. It was so good, but the SEC championship game was a little more. I know you guys are full. I know you guys have seen enough. You had enough. But let me go ahead and show you I got more in the menu just to make sure you guys know I'm the best. I have the best restaurant in the building. I have the best chef, and I should get every award that's out there. And that's how I look at it. And by the way, you guys can tell I'm pretty hungry because I'm talking about food while we're talking about football, but I thought they can go hand in hand. And I actually think I did a pretty good job. Hopefully.
Yeah,
you understand
I like that.
I liked it.
I do, because Bryce Young absolutely feasted against the Georgia defense in that SEC championship game. And now Alabama not only going to try to go back-to-back with the Heisman as they complete that on this night, but now go back-to-back in the national championship with Bryce Young leading the way. As for the voting here, Barrett, it was a landslide. 684 first-place votes for Bryce Young compared to 78 for Michigan's Aiden Hutchinson, who finishes second in the voting. Your reaction to that?
I'm surprised at that for a couple of reasons. One, the voting is regional, and a lot of people who are voters don't pay attention to college football on a day-to-day, hour-to-hour basis like we do. And some of them, sadly, aren't even in the world of sports anymore. They work in some other field. And for Aiden Hutchinson to garner that much attention, to finish second in terms of first-place votes, That is unbelievable to me because you're sitting here with a Michigan player on the defensive side of the ball, which Heisman voters typically don't like, really in the conversation with another Big Ten player in C.J. Stroud, who plays the glamour position at quarterback. So to me, Aiden Hutchinson, oh, by the way, there was also another defensive player, Will Anderson Jr., that was a big threat to Aiden Hutchinson too. So all of those factors combined, it really is surprising.
Yeah, it is. It is. I think either quarterback was more deserving of being number 2, in my opinion. And the reason why I say that is because I love Aiden Hutchinson as a player, but he wasn't the best pass rusher in college football. That was Will Anderson. And if you don't believe me, outside of what you've seen by watching game film, just go look at the numbers. Numbers were never lied to you. So me personally seeing that he wasn't the best pass rusher in college football, wasn't the best defender in college football, I'm a bit surprised to see Hutchinson finished number 2.
Well, he did have a school record 14 sacks this season and a huge part in knocking off Ohio State. But it is Bryce Young that wins the Heisman, earning 684 first-place votes as you see how the voting played out for the 2021 Heisman voting. And you heard Barrett say this is a quarterback trophy. Well, quarterbacks have now won the Heisman Trophy 10 of the last 12 years.